Hi, I'm Josh Cadillac, and welcome to my podcast, Know Your Shit. I've been blessed to see great success, as well as seeing the bottom up close and personal in 2008. And if there's one lesson I've learned is that if you want to have success and differentiate yourself from everyone else out there, you need to know your shit. As a successful real estate and crypto investor and an educator, it drives me insane that people do not immerse themselves in their craft. Everyone is so busy advertising and testing new sales techniques, they forget the most important thing, the product. Here I want to talk to the folks that got this right, the most successful people in the world in every industry. Bring them to you and find out what they learned in their business that made it great. When you listen to my podcast, you will know for sure that the topics and experts we have on have one thing in common. They know their shit. Hello, my name is Josh Cadillac, and you're listening to the Know Your Shit podcast. So who am I? Well, I'm a guy that started working at a really young age. I started working for my dad when I was 9 years old, and I went to school later on in the days. Right now, I'm a top-selling agent, have been since 2008. I'm an investor in real estate and cryptocurrency. I've achieved just about every real estate designation that there is known to mankind. And in the process of doing that, I realized that the education that existed for real estate was pretty poor, and investment in general was pretty poor out there. So I started writing my own courses for realtors, investors, and crypto folks. And now I teach those all over the country. I even wrote a book called The Roadmap to the American Dream on just how money works for just regular people. Because when I went to college, I realized that after taking a whole bunch of classes, they would loan me a whole bunch of money, but nobody would tell me anything about how the system worked to pay that money back, how to make money, how to invest money, how to use capital. And so I also run a real estate investment fund, and I'm in the construction and property management side of the business as well. So all of those things kind of come together to give me a perspective on the real estate industry and on investing and all of these things that's a little bit more well-rounded, I think, than most agents have. And that's where the idea of knowing your shit comes from, the idea of knowing your industry, what's involved with your industry and what affects your industry. But that's not really the whole idea of this know your shit thing, because it's not just enough to have product knowledge. It's not just enough to know about the market. We've also got to know a few other things. We got to know the customer. We've got to know what the customer wants from us. We've got to know what the expectation is. And we've got to know what the ideal version of us, the customer we want to work with, is. And so for me, it kind of breaks down to three things when I think about it, at least as far as real estate would go. On the sales side of real estate, the customer wants to work with somebody that they kind of like. And this is kind of where the real estate folks slam on the brakes. They're in a popularity contest. If I could just win a popularity contest, this customer is going to love me and work with me forever. Reality of it is, it doesn't work that way. There's lots of people that we like, that we know. They're hilarious. They put us rolling on the floor laughing, but we would never call them as a babysitter for our kids, right? There's something that's more that we need than just having somebody that we like. And the reality of it is also, the customer has friends. They don't need more friends. Now, they want to like you in the sense that they enjoy working with you, but most agents turn that into they need another friend. We're not looking to win a friend game here. There's more to it than that. The second thing we kind of need is that market knowledge. That's the big chunk of this thing, to show the customer, hey, look, I got this thing under control. I know how this thing works. In fact, you don't have to be an expert in it, because I will do that job for you. Because the issue really is, and this has been a major shift in society, investors, customers, they think they know better because often they do. Often they've done more research than the agent has. And that stems from the ready access of information. Unlike, in ages past where, you just said, oh, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. Oh, really? Okay, we'll listen to you. Now you say I've been doing this for 20 years, and they're immediately Google searching in front of you what the answer to fact check what you just said. Sometimes they're nicer people and they wait for you to leave and they Google check you behind your back, right? That's kind of the world that we live in. So you have to know your stuff cold. You can't just rely on, oh, I've been doing this for so long. And then the last piece of this is showing the customer that you get what they really want from someone like you, regardless of what the position is. It doesn't matter. It's not just real estate, anything. They want somebody that's going to look out for them, right? I mean, if you were going on trial for murder, wouldn't you want to feel like the attorney is like, not only are they really good at what they do, but they're going to make sure they tell you, look, I'm going to take care of you like you're my brother. Well, gee, that would feel a lot better. Wouldn't it be great if that attorney was somebody that you knew your whole life and you were really close with, right? You knew that they were going to take and pull out all the stops to take care of you, and nobody was going to get one by them because they're really good at what they do. Well, if you were to ask the customer what in their heart of hearts, if they could rub a lamp and get a genie, who they'd like to work with in my industry, that's exactly who it would be. So that's kind of one of the things that what we want to look like, what we want to kind of cut through the nonsense, cut through the bullshit and get to what is the shit you have to know to genuinely know your shit in the industry, to have the whole thing on lockdown. For me, being a builder and being a property manager, in addition to being an agent, I look at the sale of the asset side. I also look on the back end side of the management of this asset and making sure those returns that we project actually are coming in. And I'm also on the supply side because I build homes. So I know what the inventory looks like coming in and what the stumbling blocks are. All of these things have been immensely helpful in my business to help me build the business I've built all over this time. The reasons why we want this is the customer wants this from us. That is, the customer is dying to have somebody that they like, that knows their stuff, and they trust will look out for them. Somebody to work with that will tell them, hey, look, don't do the deal right now. I know I don't make any money if you don't do the deal right now, but don't do it. It's not the best thing for you. The real estate agent that says, don't sell right now, try to refinance, I think it's a better play. Because at the end of the day, that agent that tells them that, what they're actually doing is they're investing in their business. They're actually investing in the future of their business. There's a famous a scene in the Simpsons cartoon where Homer, he eats like a whole bunch of mayonnaise and drinks a bunch of alcohol and whatever. And he's like, wow, you know what? That's future Homer's going to have a real big problem. I'm real glad I'm not that guy. Folks, we have the opportunity to either invest in our future or to not, to try to take the quick hit now and then pay the price for it in the future, or push off the good thing for something even better later on. And my thought on this is always that I don't want to close this transaction. I want to close every transaction this customer is ever going to do. If I get the chance to work with them, and then after that, they work with someone else, even if I got that deal closed from that first deal closed from, I got paid to fail. Because after they work with me, there should be no question left in their mind. There's only one person they ever work with again. And that's got to be me. And the other big piece of this is, especially when it comes to real estate, other people in the industry know we need this. When I interview, when I teach all over the country and I ask agents, I say, hey, what percentage of agents would you say are bad agents? The number comes back as 80 to 95%. These are people in the industry dealing with other people in the industry telling me that 80 to 95% of the other agents out there are bad. So even the people that would work with an agent desire to have a better quality of agent. They know that we need it in the market. I have a customer, he's a German customer, and he comes here and he tells me all the time, and it irritates me because I'm very American, he's very German, that, Americans, we're just stupid. That's what he says. He's stupid. Like if he goes to a store and he's got a problem when he runs his washing machine, that there's knocking in the pipes, and he goes to the store and nobody at the store can help him. He says in Germany, every person that sells the product knows what, all the problems that come up. They know they know their shit. He's used to being around people that know their shit. And he comes here and no one knows. So the idea of taking and becoming a commodity that the market is desperate to have, is simply a matter of getting your head around the idea of committing yourself to know the very thing that you're depending on to support yourself, the actual career that you're in, if that's real estate or whatever it is. The idea of actually immersing yourself in what you do, to the extent that when somebody asks you, hey, how does this thing work? You can not just answer the question, but you can answer the question well in a way that shows them you've thought about it and you care about it, that it matters. It's one of the things that my father, I was blessed to have a father that was older when I was born. His generation got this right. They screwed up other things. But when it came to their work was very important to them. It was a reflection of them. And so we have to take and have our head wrapped around the fact that this opportunity to separate ourselves from the rest of the herd, from the other folks out there that are just kind of, in real estate, we call it faking it till you make it. You know, you go out there and you act like you've got a bunch of experience because you have no clue which way is up. And you're really just trying to take and find somebody that's dumb enough to give you a commission for doing a deal. Let me do a deal, dumb enough to give me a deal to do. And hopefully I don't screw up too bad and I get paid. And unfortunately, that's kind of how it goes in this industry. I kind of learned this years ago and in lots of different ways. There's kind of been lots of different places in my life where I started to see the value of this. My father was a big one always on making sure that I knew what was going on and understanding, you know, how things worked and why they worked. But one day in particular that I saw the benefit. Originally, I'm from New York, right? And coming from New York, there's like two things that you should never do. They're like major New Yorker social faux pas that you just don't do. One is you never act like a tourist. If you act like a tourist, you're like officially kicked out of the Being from New York club. You're like a lower form of life. Like there's the tourists and then there's the New Yorkers, right? And never the twain shall meet. The second thing you can never do as a New Yorker is get sold to. If somebody sells you something, you're a sucker. You're a fool, right? So I've always considered myself a very tough person to sell anything to. So years ago, I took my, I had a big Chevy Yukon SUV. I took it in for service, and I had heard that the new convertible Corvette had come out. And I'm a car guy. I mean, like I'm a real car guy. Back when I was much younger, I went and I even took all my certifications, became master auto tech. I mean, I know how cars work. I really like them. And so I went in to look at the new convertible Corvette. And I was going in there to look. And I knew a salesman would be coming up. And I already had my no polished off, warmed, got it all polished and ready for him to hand that no to that sales guy. So I'm looking at the car. It was a beautiful car. And so I'm checking it out. And I had read some stuff on it and all. And I was excited to look at it. And the sales guy comes up to me. And so what's the normal line for a sales guy when it comes to a car? Hey, do you like the color? Want to take it for a test drive? Beautiful car, right? So the guy comes up, and as he's coming up and saying, hey, look, I'm not looking to buy a car here today. I just want to save you some time. You know, I know maybe you were up and I don't want you to take and like lose a commission, you know, just tell them whatever, maybe, you know, I won't count and you'll have the next person that comes in. I don't want you to waste your time. You're not going to sell me a car. Guy says, hey, look, I get it. I'm not going to try to sell you a car. It is a cool car though, actually. And he said, here, let me take you, show you. This is the one that I just got myself. He had just gotten one of the first ones that came out. His was one of the ones that didn't have the automatic top, and the automatic top ones had just come out. And so he's showing me around. It's the first car I'd ever seen. This is 2006. First car I'd ever seen where you just touch the door handle, the door opens, and, you know, you push the button and the car starts. Now, all the cars do that, right? But it was pretty cool stuff back then. You never have to take the keys out of your pocket. It was like magic. It was a Houdini thing. He told me how long it took the top to go up and down. He explained to me that the engine and transmission weren't directly connected. The transmission was in the back and the drive shaft connected. It was actually a transaxle and independent suspension. He went through the whole car with me. He loved the car. He thought it was a mechanical masterpiece, a marvel. And he sold me a car that day because he knew his shit. He knew what he was selling. He knew what was good about it. And I would think as people, especially people in sales, knowing what's good about the thing you sell has to make it much, much easier to sell because you no longer feel like you're trying to con somebody into giving you some money. You actually realize you're bringing something good and beautiful and wonderful into their life. And that's the place this guy's sales came from. I think I learned something that day. But fast forward into my real estate career. In the first couple of years, I chased all these real estate designations and certification, try to run them all down. And there was one for brokerage. Now, I had never planned to be a broker or anything like that. I just wanted to be an agent, sell real estate. That was my thing. I'm not looking to go into another business. I've been in a lot of businesses in my life. The brokerage business as a broker was never one that interested me all that much. But I always wanted to understand kind of what went on behind the scenes so that I knew how to position myself to be in the best position for the brokerage and everybody else involved. Maybe there was an opportunity there. Not as a broker, but again, as some sort of asset to the firm that made me maybe made there be special considerations and special situation for me, right? And so I there was this exercise they did in the class, and it was a negotiating exercise, and so I was supposed to play the part of a disgruntled agent that was looking for a higher commission split. And, I was older agent that hadn't been doing so much business recently. And the new broker had come in and he's looking to take over. And I'm being real difficult and like whispering stuff behind the scenes and like undercutting everything he does. Right. So I'm thinking, oh, passive aggressive, be a jerk. No problem. I got this covered. I feel bad for the guy on the other side. And the person that took the other side was actually a gentleman that had been poking around the room all day. Super nice guy. I'm like, oh man, this guy is super milquetoast. I'm going to eat his lunch. And this guy proceeds to absolutely negotiate my socks off. I genuinely felt like I was standing there with no pants. By the time it was time for me to speak, he had been so pleasant and so kind and so understanding of my situation and had thought about it from my perspective and, trying to take and figure out a way to make things better for me. And I sat here and said to myself, here I am. I thought I was a good negotiator. And I knew what the hell I was doing. And this guy, and with kindness, like I wound up I liked the guy already when he came over, but I was committed to not liking the guy. And he turned me around, even though I didn't want it to happen. That guy knew his shit. And the day that it actually kind of came together for me, I was teaching one of my very first class that I wrote. And this is one of the stories I kind of hang on to because there's been a lot of times in my life that this has really come in and been helpful for me. But I always like it best when it's helpful, not just for me, but it's helpful for other people. And so this is one story that kind of stuck with me where this kind of all sort of came together. I was teaching my 2-day class down here in my local market in Miami, and I was between day 1 and day 2. At the end of day 1, I'd gotten a phone call from a customer. They said, hey, could you meet? Now, I've been teaching all day and I was exhausted. But they said, hey, look, it's the only day we can meet. Please, can we get the other side? I said, okay, sure. I'll shoot over. So it's like 6:30 at night. I'm meeting these folks. And they tell me this is the deal they want. They say, look, we want you to sell the condo where our parents are living because they're getting older. We need them to move in with us. They're going to move in with us. We want you to take and rent the house we live in. And we want you to buy us a bigger house. Now, for most real estate agents, you would probably need a little cup or bowl to carry for the drool that's now flowing. This is one meeting for 3 deals. That's not a bad day at BlackRock. But I got my financial calculator and I just gotten done teaching the financial calculator earlier that day. And I did the numbers for them. And I said, well, what's the reason you want to do this? Well, we want to invest. We want to take and start, getting ready for retirement. I said, all right, well, if we take and rent your existing home, you're walking away with a 1.5% rate of return on your money. We can do better than that with something else. If we instead sold this home and got you into a different property type, we could definitely beat that 1.5% rate of return and get you closer to the actual goals that you have. So that's what we did. We sold that home and we bought them 3 other properties, less expensive properties that had better rent ratios than their home would have. Those homes have since appreciated since that meeting. They're up about 55%. They've built tremendous wealth simply by allocating the capital in a different way, because that night I knew my shit. So how do you get there? Like, what's the steps? It sounds great, Josh. Like, how do we actually do this? Well, to me, it starts with step number one. The place all this stuff always starts with is with you, right? You've got to realize that you're running a business. I don't care what you do. You're running a business to some extent. And in your personal life and in your business life, most of the time, in your personal life, all the time, we have a situation where we are the CEO of our life, right? I mean, we're in charge, we're the boss, right? But here's the issue. Who's the staff of the company? You are too. So we've got to figure out how to take and be a good boss to ourselves and how to be a good employee for ourselves. And what do I mean by that? You know, there's kind of this human schizophrenic existence that we have where, you know, the alarm clock goes off and in your head, the CEO says, hey, it's time to get up. And the staff party is sitting there saying, 5 more minutes, mom. You know, we go back and forth on this stuff. And what winds up happening for a lot of people that aren't able to really get where they want to go, that staff voice is really the one that's running the company. So the idea of recognizing there's this CEO voice going on in your head and making that the dominant voice, letting that voice rule the day. You know, the alarm clock gets up and you just make a commitment in your head. I'm going to jump out of bed. For the next week, as soon as the clock goes, I'm jumping out. I'm going to be standing on my feet. And giving the CEO a chance to start winning more of those battles than they're losing with you is the first step to getting out of you, the you that you're capable of being, a better version of you. I mean, wouldn't we all benefit tremendously from getting a better version of ourselves out of ourselves? We're stuck with ourselves for the rest of our lives. So this seems to make a lot of sense on its face. One of the lines that I like, I heard it again recently, is that losers blame others and winners blame themselves. You could look for other people to change, for circumstances to change, for politicians to fix things, or governments, or, you know, the school that you're at, or whatever. You could wait for that, but you're dependent on somebody else. The biggest agent you have for change is you with you. So starting there is the best place to start. You want to know your shit? Get you right. Turn you into the kind of person that's uncomfortable not knowing their shit. The ability to understand not just what's going on, but why it's going on. This is where in real estate, I see this all the time. People get this wrong. They tell the customer something like, oh, the market's really hot right now. There's no inventory. If you were to ask them why that is, what you would get is something along the lines of the very eloquent renderings of Mr. Porky Pig. But they have no idea. They don't know their shit. They don't know why, what's happening to their market that keeps them alive and supports them, why it's happening. Which means that literally, like, they're just drifting along, hoping things go well. Gee, I hope it's a good day tomorrow because I have no idea why today was a good day. Understanding why what's going on is one of the most important things that you can possibly do. Understanding that why. And my father was always famous for this. He would do stuff sometimes and you'd sit there and you'd say, like, the old man's out of his mind. And then you'd ask him why. And he'd kill you with the answer because it was just so clever. An example, I'll tell you a story. This is a classic story of my father, just to show you where all the brain damage came from, right? This is where it all started. One day he had come home from, I don't know where he went, and he had the old Cadillac, 1974 Cadillac. And he had taken the door key. There used to be 2 keys for the car. The square one was the one for the ignition, and the round one was the one for the door and the trunk. He took the key off his key ring and he handed it to me, and he said, hey, look, I want you to unload the trunk. So I went, I unloaded the trunk, brought the key back. He wasn't around. I forget where he was, but his pants were sitting where he usually left his pants. So I went in. I know the ignition key and the door key have to be right alongside of each other. So I put the door key on the key ring right next to the ignition key, everything back. Everything's fine. Because the protocol normally is you get the keys, you put the keys in his hand or whoever's keys they are in their hand, and you say, hey, I'm returning your keys to you. So you don't have that whole problem of, oh, did you ever give me my keys back? Right? So I didn't do that. So when I saw him later, I said, hey, look, I'm just letting you know, Dad, the keys are back in your pocket. I put the key back on the key ring. It's there. He said, I know. Thank you very much. You put the key on the wrong way. I said, now, wait a second. I've been working with key rings a little while. I realize I'm not that old, but I have been working with key rings a little while. It's pretty much a binary choice. The key is either on or off the key ring. The key is clearly on the key ring. Therefore, there is not another permutation that I'm aware of that I could have done with this key. What do you mean it's on the wrong way? He said, well, all the teeth on the keys, on my key rings, face the same direction. I'm like thinking in my head, okay, this is where OCD turns into CDO. This is where you need to alphabetize OCD, right? It's that bad. I said to him, as much incredulity as my teenage mind could work up, why would anybody waste their time doing that? He said, well, it's pretty simple, really. When it's dark out, all I have to do is get one of the keys facing the same way, and I can try every key in the lock without having to worry about the key being facing the wrong way. And I had to sit there and say to myself, that makes a lot of sense. And I learned a lot from my father in that story and many others that you'll probably hear if you tune in, of what the mindset of an investor is. My father was always willing to spend the extra 2 seconds right now to invest in his future going forward. He was always willing to make his life easier by thinking through, is there a better way to do it right now? Man, if we all did that, life would be so much better, wouldn't it? Things would go so much smoother. The last thing, and it kind of ties with the first thing, but it's also different to some extent, is the idea of taking your business personally. Again, something my father's generation did really, really well. They were very big on, maybe things weren't going so well at home, but they did great work. Like this was the pride of work. Like work was not just something they did to get to real life, kind of like how we do it today. Work was part of life. And, they 50 years with the same company. Yeah, I built that right there kind of thing. And so I remember a story when I was, I don't know, maybe 9, 10 years old. I was sweeping a floor. My father saw me sweeping the floor. My father was an older guy, as I said. And he comes over and he takes the broom out of my hand and he says, that's not how you sweep a floor. This is how you sweep a floor. He says, look, I don't care if you grow up to be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. I don't care if you grow up to be a floor sweeper. When you sweep a floor, that's your floor. The way you sweep that floor is a reflection of you and the standard you have for yourself. What you'll do when no one else is looking, what you'll do for you, what you'll accept from you. A few years later, one of the jobs I was working for my father, there was this floor in the cafeteria, that operation that we had. And we had to take up the tile that was on the floor. This particular type of tile has this unique property that the longer it's down and the more people that walk on it, the more well adhered the tile becomes. So getting this tile up was akin to trying, this tile was laid by the gods when the planet was first created. Like there was no moving it. It was ridiculously hard. So he had me start the project at 6 a.m. and we had to get it done basically like in a 48-hour stretch. So we started at 6 a.m. and we're banging away on this floor. And at some point I realized I had a couple of other guys there like sweeping the shavings up and stuff like that. I'm like, look, we're going to have to go get another machine. There's no way that this floor is going to come up. I'm about 15 years old, like 14, 15 years old when this is going on. And so I sent one of the guys to go get another one of these machines. And the machine is just a machine that's got a little blade that's chipping away. You big machine, you hold it up here and you push it down and it's scraping the floor to get the floor up. So we get to about midnight and we have about 80% of the floor done. Now I've been going since 6 a.m. And the guy I'm with, the one guy that I still had left with me, I said, hey, look, man, you got a family, go ahead, go home. I'll keep working. I'll finish this up by myself. So he leaves. About 4 a.m., my father calls me and he says, hey, I'm on the way up with your brother to relieve me. And I've been going for 22 hours straight. And he shows up with my brother to take and relieve me. And I said, I had this little strip of floor left. I mean, after this giant floor that I had done. And I said, get the hell away from me with this kid. I'm finishing what I started. And he didn't really say anything, but I just kind of saw a look in his eye that said, you get it now. This is your floor. You finish what you start. You do great work, whether anybody's looking or not. You do what everybody else is not willing to do. So to me, it was kind of where I started to develop this fascination with the idea of paying attention to the things that other people don't pay attention to or are too lazy to pay attention to, and doing the things that other people are unwilling to do. Whether it be in, exercise or, whatever, when you stay that extra hour, you earn what you want to get out of life by doing the thing that other people aren't willing to do. Now, it's not all hard work. My father's generation was very much all hard work and just beat your head into the ground. If it wasn't happening, it's just because you weren't working hard enough. And there's ways, and I'm a big fan of ways to work smarter, not harder. But getting yourself geared up and turning yourself into the kind of person that knows that they'll still be going when other people are falling by the wayside. That's a good gift to give yourself, to know that about yourself. For me, that's been a very helpful thing when the going gets tough, because the going does get tough. And so being a good boss, again, to that first idea, when the going gets tough, we have to take and prepare for that. These are all things. There's lots of things to talk about on all these topics, folks. And what I want to do, and what I'm hoping to do with this podcast, is to bring in people that are going to be able to help us on these topics. People that have done this and done this well. There's not just one way to skin the cat, but there are some common themes. And so I want to get in some of the leaders in the industries that really know what they're doing and have been successful and accomplished, and maybe give you folks that listen, and for myself as well, to learn something that takes and makes this thing that we're doing, this life that we live, the businesses that we do, the investments that we make them the best they can possibly be. Help us to squeeze every last little bit out of this life that we can, out of ourselves, out of our money, out of what we do, so we can sit there and have a life well lived. That's what I'm shooting for, folks. I hope this is helpful. Hope to see you next time, and hoping that you commit to know your shit. Have a great one.